Good morning. Let me see if this is working. Good morning. Let's do a little better. It's early. You're all drunk and hungover. Come on, a little better. So I'm a little nervous today, I have to admit, because I'm a little out of my comfort zone. So I was talking to my teenage son, who doesn't talk, before this presentation. He said, "Now, Dad, what are you presenting?" And I said, "Well, I'm talking about the future of travel. I'm talking about how technology is going to impact the way the next generation travels." And he went, "Oh, that's cool." And I said, "Well, no, it is really cool," and talked to him a little about some of the stuff. And he goes, "Oh, that's interesting." He goes, "What are you going to wear?" And I said, "I want to wear a suit and tie." And he goes, "Okay, if you want to look old." And so I said, all right, what should I wear?" And so I helped him he helped me pick my wardrobe, which is what's making me nervous. But it is important because what we're seeing is a change in the traveling public. So you've got, in 5 years, 47% of the workforce will be millennials, which is a change to how we need to think about the way that they'll think about it. And by 2017, they'll have as much buying power in travel as any other generation. So we have to start thinking about what that means in terms of how does that change our thinking? Because if you're like me, this is what a rock concert used to look like, right? It was all lighters, ready to go. This is what a rock concert looks like today. And when you talk about the rate of change, the pace of change that's out there, when I first saw this picture, I didn't think much about it because it's St. Peter's Square at the Vatican. It's when, in 2005, Pope Benedict was announced. And again, I thought it was an interesting picture. There are a lot of people. But I didn't really think about it until I saw 2013 when Pope Francis was announced. It's a dramatic change in the way that we think about our environment, the way that we think about technology and its impact to the way that we move through daily life. So what happens in an internet minute? If you look at some of the data, it's truly astounding. It's amazing. 150 million emails sent in a minute. 21 million WhatsApp messages sent in a minute. In 1 minute, Sabre will book 2,000 passengers. That's 30 people booked on a trip every second. And they have to, in order to do that, we have to process almost 700,000 XML messages in that same minute, which is 1 billion a day. And those data that continues to grow is creating opportunity for us, creating opportunity for the industry to make better use of the data that we have on hand and turn it into actionable analytics. What's crazy about that is for every baby that's born, we activate 5 new smartphones. So we're growing the digital usage in a really dramatic way, and in a way that has the potential to really impact all of our lives. This is 2015, the data around how many people utilize mobile applications on their phone and their smartphone while traveling. So if you look at China, nearly 100% of the Chinese people that travel utilize their digital phone. Some of the things that they do, 81% use it for navigation. 67% use it to look for things that are near them, activities. So you're looking at a group of people that's actively engaging with their digital environment to try to put in place experiences that will turn into things that are meaningful to them. And by 2030, we'll have 1 billion more travelers. So you're adding 1 billion people to the mix. Because with the rise of the middle class and population growth, we're getting to a place where we're really adding complexity to the environment. But with that complexity comes the need for us to find ways to simplify it. Find ways to take this, which is an average day, that is an actual screenshot of flight planning software for Sabre that shows where planes are over the world. So we have to deal with complexity. And I think sometimes we don't take enough credit as an industry for some of the things that we've already done that are truly innovative, things that are truly advancing the way that we think about things. Let's take an example. New York to London. New York to London on any given day, there are almost 2 trillion fare and rule combinations in the fares database. There are 5 billion of those that are specific to that origin and destination, 3 billion on that same day, 6 million that are actually available. So 6 million fare and rule combinations that are actually available. And you have to take that down to 500 you want to present back to the consumer in a transparent way so they can make a good, strong buying decision so that they can find the one that's right for them. And you have to do that in under 3 seconds because consumers won't wait for you. So that's what Sabre does. We take that complexity and we turn it into something that's usable. And that complexity is what's making things easier. Some of you will remember the snowstorms in New York in 2011. JetBlue stuck a plane on the tarmac for 7 hours. 7 hours. Because they didn't have recovery modules in place to allow them to take what is a big data problem, which is how do I move things around to put my airline back together? Consumers hate to hear this. I have bad news for you as travelers. You're last on the list. Something goes pear-shaped, you have to move aircraft and crew first, get to the passengers last. So you have to have a recovery module in place to do that. Good news for JetBlue is there was Snowstorm Jonas that just blew through. They did have the recovery modules implemented, and they were the first airline to start flying again. So they fixed their problem. And similarly in the hospitality space, we're having to find new ways to connect with travelers because shoppers in the hospitality space are looking for experiences, Instagrammable, Snapchatable moments, right? And so they start with not the rate screen. They don't look for the availability screen. Where do they go? The photo gallery. So we finally had to do things like embed the booking engine inside the photo gallery so that you don't have to go to the photo gallery, click through, and then go back to the place where it all started. Embed that experience as you move through the process, and technology is allowing us to do that. And so when we start talking about tourism in 2023, what does that kind of feel like? 1 billion new travelers, the idea that we've got all these new hubs, the change in Europe from the fact that the new airport in Istanbul, the expectation is that it's going to go from 42 million travelers today to 150 million travelers, changing the dynamic of the hub structure in all of Europe. So I was trying to think, how do I explain that change? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you on a trip. We're going to go on a trip together, actually, in 2023 and see what that feels like. So we'll start by preparing. That's new. So if you're like most people that came to ITB for the first time this year, what's the first thing you did? You got lost because it's so big and there's so many different halls that you ended up trying to pick and find your way through, right? So in the future, Oculus Rift, which is what's up here, which is a virtual reality device, there are already a number of uses for it, but in the future, you could potentially, before coming to ITB, go download the ITB service where they will have already walked through for you. They can show you, and you can virtually experience ITB before you ever get here. Because if you're like me, I love to travel. I love going new places, but I don't like looking like a tourist. I like to pretend that I fit in. I know that I don't all the time. But I like to pretend that I'm experienced already. And via virtual reality, you'll have the ability to do that. In fact, Marriott's already done it. They've created several virtual reality trips that you can take, one of which is to their Hawaii property. You can actually walk around the entire property. You can see the beaches. You can experience the way it would feel to be there. And people sometimes ask me around the virtual reality thing, won't that decrease travel? Won't that cause people to feel like they can just virtually experience the trip without actually experiencing the trip. And the reality is, no, I think it's the reverse. It's exactly the opposite, because what it means is it takes you to a place where you want to go so that you can experience the smells, the tastes, the sounds, the sights for yourself. So virtual reality, it's actually here, and will becoming more. Digital assistants will help me book my trip. No longer need a personal assistant, just need my digital assistant. Bad news for all of you that use Gmail, by the way. Google's already reading your email. And so if you give your digital assistant the ability to read your email, they have the ability to begin to book things just on messages that you're having back and forth. I think if you look at the application world today, so if you look at the App Center is filled with apps that are really just an artificial way to help us communicate and connect more effectively. And that's going to become more and more embedded in both email and in messaging applications, where apps that have sat around the communication component will become part of it. So we're ready to go now. We've prepared. We've done our virtual reality tour. We've got our trip planned. Time for me to head to the airport. I need to make sure before I pack, though, that I look and check the weather. The change in biometrics and wearables is going to be dramatic. You're no longer going to have, and I would point out that when you talking about wearables and things like that, we had in 2015 1.4 billion smartphones, 233 million tablets, and 75 million wearables. That number by 2020 is predicted to be 6 billion. So when you're looking at the number of people, 6 billion is the same as everybody in Germany, everybody in the United States, and everybody in China owning a digital device. And they're getting better, which is pushing wearables more aggressively into the mix. And they'll begin to use our biometrics more effectively. My digital assistant tells me it's time to go to the airport. What's next? Want to take a look at where we're headed? Want to know? She's going to push me a message. Hey, by the way, your flight's been canceled, but you're in luck. I've already rebooked you. We're good. And again, all without me having to request it. It's going to be a more push environment. You're not going to be, today it's really request reply on your mobile device. Very soon, especially in the travel world, you're going to be in no longer a request reply, but in a push environment. You'll be in an environment where the applications that you interact with are interacting with you proactively. Get to the airport, check in with my fingerprint. Biometrics are already in use. Unfortunately, the underlying infrastructure for the use of biometrics and the data collection facilities aren't quite there yet. But by 2023, we should have the capability to make sure that fingerprints and other biometrics are easily captured and maintained and mapped against things like your passport. So the ability for us to utilize and streamline things like security, border control, et cetera, all the things that make it simpler for travelers will be in place. We could even move past fingerprints because there are embedded ECG, the electrocardiogram things. Did you know that everybody's heartbeat beats slightly different? It's a very independent thing, much like a fingerprint. There's the way to track that and identify you just based on your heartbeat. Things like the Apple Watch already do some interesting things that make things simpler. So if you use Apple Pay, as an example, once you put your Apple Watch on and log in once with your password, you don't have to log in again. Why? Because the watch knows whether you've taken it off or not. So it knows that it's still you. So as you begin to ease through some of these things that today are cumbersome, having to constantly add my password, the fact that my kids don't think it's strange at all that I can log in, that they can log into their iPhone with their fingerprint, whereas my mother thinks that's magic. She literally thinks it's magic. I mean, she's of the old generation, so much of the old generation that she has email and she has some text capability. But every Friday she calls me because my kids don't talk, as I mentioned. They only text or email. She calls me and goes, "Did the kids email me?" I go, "Yes." She goes, "What'd they say?" Because she doesn't email, because she's older, and so she's got to get used to it. But we won't think anything about thumbprints or heartbeats to identify us in the future because it'll become natural. And like we said, half of the workforce will be millennials very quickly, so it's going to change. And even the idea of holograms on your phone are coming. I don't know if it'll make my 7-year window, but some of the technology that's there exists today. It's just super expensive to be able to begin to have holographic capability on your phones. So you get in flight, a way to check out, again, Oculus Rift. This is a VR, fully 3D immersed environment. So watching a movie no longer on the small screen in front of me, but utilizing a technology that I may carry with me or that might be provided to me will change that long haul experience, the ability to really escape my environment. Perhaps get notified by my Bluetooth luggage bag that I made the flight, but it didn't. This one's slightly annoying to me because it makes me realize that I could actually find out on my way from here to Sydney, Australia, that my bag didn't make it. Rather than finding out when I got there and being annoyed for a couple of minutes, I now get to be annoyed for 20 hours on the way there. However, I guess it's still important to know that I could be in sync with my bag. This example actually allows you to see that you didn't get your bag as you're pulling away from the gate and actually activate the app that puts a red screen on the luggage that says lost, tells people that it's lost, which again, maybe is helpful, but I'm not exactly sure. And then some of you have seen, because there's an airline here in Germany that's rolling out the electronic bag tag. So you download the app, you utilize your check-in capability, you sync Bluetooth to the bag, and it automatically puts your bag tag on the bag. The good thing about the bag tag, too, is that it's immune to humidity and rain, and you can't tear it off, so less likely that your bag gets misplaced because it couldn't read the bag tag. And it's the same size as the current paper bag tags. So you're in a good place no matter what. And all of this is a big data problem. So I just want to talk for a second about, we're talking a lot about the point of sale kind of things, the things that we all see. But underlying that is really the need to take all of the data that's created inside this wonderful industry and make it usable and actionable. And that takes the ability to bring that data into a meaningful form and create technology that begins to lift that data up one level so that it can then be utilized in really tough mathematical problems from time to time to become usable to the end consumer. So let's head to the hotel. Scared to death about this, but I know it's coming. My autonomous car comes with no driver to pick me up because it knows where I'm going, it knows how to get there. The current estimates are that the biggest user of autonomous cars will eventually be Uber. So we'll get used to, in the next 7 years, hitting our Uber feed and having a car pull up with no driver, which again scares me to death. But seems like it's in that 7-year horizon. Get to the hotel. This is already happening. Digital key cards, get to the hotel. Hotel knows you're there. Don't have to stop at the desk because I've already loaded my payment information. The hotel automatically checks me in because I've gotten my app that says I'm already assigned to room 704, walk to room 704. As soon as I check in with the digital key card or open my door with the digital key card on that first time, the hotel knows I'm there. So they don't lose the human interaction because hoteliers are worried about losing that touch point with you because they want a chance to upsell. They want a chance to offer you, would you like the free breakfast in the morning? They want a chance to offer you those things, but now they know. So as I get there, log in to the app, check in at the door, the first thing that happens is a ring from the manager. Hi, this is the hotel manager, Mr. Webb. We're glad to have you. Is there anything I can get you extra? By the way, before you unpack all your things, I have a suite available for only $29 more. If you'd like me to switch you to that, I can right now. So the opportunity is still there for all the things that, all that interaction that's been in place. It's just that it's going to move forward in the process. Certainly, my digital assistant will send me things based on my preferences in my phone. So she sent me the fact that the Foo Fighters happen to be playing that night, easily allowing me to pick up something, but driven really by the fact that my phone knows that I've listened to the Foo Fighters more than I've listened to any other band, and it just so happens they're playing. So all of those things that your phone is collecting about you all the time, what movies you watch, what music you listen to, can all be utilized to focus on how to make your experience more meaningful, more personalized, and more scalable. So then head to ITB, head to the conference. Love this, exists today. RFID chipped name tags. So I walk in, log into my phone, ties my contact information to the application. And so when I walk into the room, if I walk over here, it'll tell me that Claudia is in my contact list, pop up any personal information about her. Might also tell me to either go talk to her because she's a contact that I need to talk to, or might buzz a little differently to say, stay away. But it's the idea that I no longer have to try to remember why I met you last year at ITB, because it's going to tell me in my phone why I met you last year at ITB and who you work for and what your phone number is. And as I move around the room, it'll change. Then we head to dinner because Claudia and I decided we want to go to dinner. End up with our iPad that has the menu on it that probably tells me, hey, been watching you lately. You should get the fish, not the steak. I, of course, ignore that. Get the steak anyway. And then we move to a beyond expense world, which is pay electronically, and that automatically goes to my expense report. So no more walking back to my assistant and dumping receipts on the table. So the idea of the current expense reporting system in the future, we're moving to a beyond expense world, because you'll no longer be buying, collecting, and logging things. You'll just be buying and automatically logging that in a digital world. And so I think as you begin to think about that, it changes the way that we think about how we move through that process. So then we go back to the hotel. I hate looking like a tourist. So I've set up my Maps application to connect to my smartwatch. My smartwatch knows to tell me 1 buzz for left, 2 buzzes for right. So I can walk back to the hotel without ever having to look. 1 buzz, 2 buzz, right? So I look like I know what I'm doing, even though I don't. Get back to the hotel, and all of a sudden, my temperature's set perfectly for me. The low light's already on. The curtains are drawn. My music's playing. And it's a personalized experience just for me based on what I like and what I want, and not such a generified experience. And then it's time to head back home. I get a reminder I need to get my kids something. My assistant's very good. So if I could leave you with just a couple of things, it's that really this is all driven by data. And there's a ton of it out there today. The problem is it's just not all actionable. So we're getting to a place where we need business intelligence applications that allow us to take big data and turn it into actionable analytics that allow us to interact with people in a new, more effective, personalized way. And trust me, we're moving out of a place where we all talk about the fact that you need to be mobile first now. You can kind of get over that and just say we need to be mobile only, because all of the devices that people are utilizing today are becoming more mobile. The idea of the iPad Pro as an example, which is a 12-inch iPad that has a keyboard that you can utilize, it's rapidly replacing, along with the Microsoft Surface tablets, is rapidly replacing not just laptops, but desktops. So the idea of not thinking mobile only is a huge mistake. And then we're really looking for efficient personalization, because you can get a personalized experience today, it's just not scalable. So hotels do a good job at the high end. If you go to the Ritz-Carlton, they will do a really good job of giving you personalized service. But you should be able to get that personalized service at any hotel. They just don't have a way to scale it yet because they need too many people. And lastly, you'll just be connected through automation the entire time. Really, the idea of not being connected to your traveler from the start of the trip to the end of the trip will effectively go away. You'll be in constant communication and a constant messaging platform. and it'll all be consumerized because consumers are ultimately going to lead us to where we need to go. It's already gotten to a place where the consumerization of travel is happening. It just needs the infrastructure to catch up. But we're all being led by the fact that crowdsourcing around the way that we think about travel in the future is happening. So this is true. The future's already arrived. Everything I showed you in the presentation exists today in some form. There's some capability around it. So the future is here. It's just not fully distributed and evenly distributed. It's what Sabre is trying to do, is help it be more effectively distributed. And I think what you'll find is that we're at a rapid pace of change. And if you're not caught up today, the chances of getting caught up are very, very unlikely. So I would suggest that everybody make as much effort as possible to get in front of the curve, because the pace in which we're seeing change in the environment and the travel and tourism industry is dramatic. So thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day.
Great to have you here.